Disney, quintessential Harry Potter millennial generation.
Oh, I love my horror movies. Anyways, here we are. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Rhonda from Goddess Garage,
And I'm Kayla from Wayward Spirit.
and we are here for Tarot Delights.
Yay, delights in tarot.
Yes, and we're talking about the Justice card today. So I got my cards out. Did not do any reading yet. So.
I feel like it's better when it's off the cuff. We just need to rein in our tangents a little bit because then we need to write it down and go hop on over to the other podcast, not about tarot.
Yes, other delights that we're hoping to be able to do as well. Mm-hmm. So Justice is what we're looking at. So that's the Rider-Waite-Smith version, my big giant deck, which is always fun to use.
Yeah.
It's so dramatic, right? When you're flipping the card over and dun dun dun.
Well, it's also very good for like visual aids.
Yeah, it is definitely. Like you say, it's my teaching deck, right? So it's the one I use to teach tarot as well. So Justice, of course, is linked to Libra, the astrological sign, because it's about the scales of justice. You know, justice is blind. In this card, they've got the scales that are balanced out, and they've got the sword facing up because justice is a legal thing as well. So
I find...
of course, you have the sword because it covers the legal terms, right? And it's upward because it's, you know, getting that right justice happening. You can see it's a king sitting on the throne, and he's in red, being the color of knowledge, as we've discussed many, many times. And he's between two pillars, and behind him is a curtain of red as well. So again, it's about that knowledge, and it's number 11. So a lot of people talk about number 11 and how it's a magical number, and it is. It's a number of transformation, really. And people are, I constantly get people coming in going, oh, I see 1111 all the time. And I'm a bit jaded on that because I will always ask them, are you seeing it on the clock only? Because if you are, you've conditioned yourself to look at the clock at 11:11.
Yeah, well, I remember years ago I used to be able to do that. I'd pick a number. Partly because when I was really, really little and I wouldn't go to sleep, my mom would give up and be like, fine, crawl in with me. And then I would still not be able to sleep, so I'd pop up and be like, oh, what time is it now? And I used to, like, you know, the old, so they were digital clocks, but it's like so the number was like like the lines.
They'd flip?
Well, no.
Oh.
My grandfather had that clock.
Okay.
He was like 2 rooms over. But the digital clock, but like nowadays you don't have, so it's like the line. So like 8 had 1, 2, 3, and then, so it's like top. So like the boxes almost.
Yes.
And I used to count the
how
number
much-
of lines.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to fall asleep.
Okay. Instead of counting sheep, she counted lines.
And numbers. But yeah, 11 came up a lot because I was like, oh, what time is it now?
Right.
11.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, if you see a number a lot, you know, test yourself. Don't be afraid to challenge these things.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we can condition ourselves to look at the clock, whether it's 2:22, 11:11, 10:10, whatever.
44.
Yeah, and you know, it might legitimately be in your life, but then, you know, if it's an angel or a past loved one that's trying to send you that message, ask them to send it another way, and they will. Trust me. I've challenged it many times in my life, and yeah, it always shows up in other ways too, so that you're not just seeing it on the clock.
I haven't tested it lately, but the last time I was like, hey, I need a sign. And because I was on the radio at that point, it wasn't at the time when we were on the radio, but it was through the radio that
A
it
lot of
worked.
sun glare.
We
happening.
do have a lot of sun glare happening.
I'm like trying to find that
There we go.
spot where it's like, okay, am I still on camera and am I being blinded?
Because, like, I'm blinded there, but if
yeah.
we're just going to be bobbing and weaving.
Yeah, and we'll probably look a little weird because we're going to have strips of sunlight coming on us. It's like, the mirror blocks a little bit, but it's just in that.
It's in that perfect dusk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, dusk. That in-between, in-betwixt time when the fairies come through.
Dusk is interesting. I don't like driving at dusk because the visor, I'm too
Yeah.
short for the visor when it comes to dusk, so it's like glaring sun.
Yeah, especially if you're driving into the sun.
Yes.
It's
You're
like,
like,
seriously, I wonder if that's an excuse for an accident. I couldn't see anything because the sun was right in my eyes.
probably.
There's times where I'm like, I'm just driving and hoping I'm still on the road.
Driving by the forest. In the winter, it's called pick a lane
Yeah.
because you can't see.
Yeah, exactly.
We like to play. We like to play in traffic in Canada.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Now for the Justice card, I have this new deck that came in not too long ago.
I like the look of that deck.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's Into Tarot is called what it's called, and it's a learning deck. So I kind of call this one of those decks that has training wheels on it.
Tarot with training wheels.
Yeah, so there was the Justice card there, and it has like words on it, right? So it says justice, fairness and balance, that's what it is about. Doing what's right, cause and effect, so the consequences of your actions, integrity, fairness, balance, legal matters, consequences, life lessons, and truth. And if you want to do the reverse, here it is, guilt and blame, karmic avoidance, unfair, victimization, cancel culture. Wow, that's pretty up to date, this deck.
I was going to say, that is up to date.
Being shamed and blamed, retribution, and imbalance. So that's all what justice is involved about. Now, I don't really do reversals. I just kind of, that's where your intuitiveness comes in, whether you want to layer the reversed meaning on it. But often when justice comes up, I don't know if you find this, but its nickname is the karma card.
Yeah, you were saying that, and I haven't done a reading where justice has come up in a while.
Okay.
So I feel like A, I'm out of practice, or B, I don't have like an example off the top of my head. So, because I think I've done like some career ones recently. I don't
Okay.
do a lot of love readings.
Okay. I do a lot of love readings. A lot.
I mean, that makes sense though, because then some people want guidance, and if
Men.
really,
A lot of men. Yeah.
that's interesting.
I can quite honestly say that no man has ever come to me for a tarot reading that isn't a love reading.
Well, I think they probably kind of get to a point where they're like, okay, where am I going wrong?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because men are like they seem to be okay on their careers and things like that, but they're often like if they're at that point of guidance, they want to talk about love. I mean, it makes sense because men are actually really sensitive, way more than women can, because as women we are almost have to be tough.
Yeah, but I think it's also socially more acceptable for women to be sensitive. So we have to be tough in some areas, and we're allowed to be sensitive about love and things like that. So like
Yeah.
asking for your friend or to have like I call coffee dates therapy sessions because sometimes therapy is really expensive, and coffee
Yeah.
with your best friend is the cheaper version of therapy. So I feel like women, because we like society has said, hey, it's okay if women talk about their feelings, but not necessarily men. Men find alternative ways to kind of see where they're at with certain things.
Yeah, because I'm finding there's more and more men's groups
Interesting.
that are coming up. I just saw an ad yesterday while I was watching YouTube or Tubi or something, some streaming service. 'Cause
There's
they're,
so many.
They're bringing commercials back again.
Oh God.
Prime now has commercials that you have to watch.
Yeah, you can't get out of them. And it's
Yeah.
funny because the kiddos that I like, not that they get an exorbitant amount of YouTube time, but like some of them, that's a reward. So when they're like, I can't skip this. I'm like, yeah, too bad.
Yeah, you got to watch it. But I did see one yesterday, I believe it was, that was for Native American men. It was a
Ooh.
men's health group.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's cool. And I've heard of a couple other men's groups that, you know, and I think that's great. I think it's great for each, you know, for us to have these circles, you know, because we do circles here, right? And
Yeah,
we're
we
doing
totally
the
do.
sacred feminine rage
I like that idea. Yeah.
circle here.
And I feel like we could probably, if we had like a male counterpart,
Yeah,
we could offer
yeah, yeah.
men's circles as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, we could. In fact, my husband wants to sort of start one up because
Good.
he's heard about them. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I think that would be a good thing. And like, he's at that point in his life where he's experienced life, some struggles. Like, I think it's best when someone who's a bit older is the one running it. Like, I don't want a 20-year-old running these circles. And not that there's anything wrong with being 20 or anything like that. It's just you haven't experienced life.
Exactly, and you, even if you have experienced some life,
Yeah.
the experiences that you've had will not pertain to most people.
No,
Where
and
if-
it's usually pretty extreme if you've experienced some kind of struggle to get over,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing if you've been able to do that. But
Yeah.
I know, like for instance, I was raped when I was 16 years old. I became pregnant from it and had to give up the twins that I had from it,
Mm-hmm.
and I was angry for a long time.
For sure.
After that, right? And I had to work through that anger, that grief, that, everything that came with it, right? And at 20 or even 29 or 30, I still wasn't.
Well, it's like you've always said, there, like, life is kind of like a spiral. Like, you're learning about things. So I had a different kind of anger experience, and I learned, I would say relatively recently, because less than 10 years is recent in my, viewpoint, that I was able to let go of some of that anger, and then, like, it came up recently, and I'm like, okay, I'm not as bad, because it didn't sting as much,
Right.
but there's still a little bit there. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's that spiral of, like, it's gonna come up, you're gonna continue on, and you're gonna get over it faster. Like, get over it as a relative term.
Yeah, work through it. I
Work
like
through
to
it, sorry.
Like
Yeah.
to say, yeah.
You're gonna work through it faster, or have more tools in your tool belt to go through things.
Yeah.
So I
yeah.
think that's important too. But you've always said there's things that my brain and words are not comprehending
That's
today.
okay.
The spiral of things. So like when
Yeah.
you go through something, it'll spiral. So in
Yeah.
a good way, not
Yeah.
in like a you're going
if
downwards.
you're learning correctly, you'll spiral out because
Yeah.
each time you come back around to that point of contention,
Mm-hmm.
whatever your struggle is, you'll see that you've moved for a little further out.
Yeah.
You're a little, less reactive about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's some forgiveness that's happened. Hopefully, yes,
Mm-hmm.
And that really does play into that justice card because justice is the karma card.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that spiral moving. So it can be one of those cards that it's like, hey, you're about to be tested again. Not to be tested, but to be shown how far you've come.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the justice card, I always jokingly say it's the card that comes up when your enemies will be vanquished.
That's a cool phrase.
And everyone's like, oh, yay. So the asshole that cut me off this morning is going to get his just desserts kind of thing. But it's also like karma for ourselves too, because we all have a karma debt because none of us are perfect.
Yep.
And it's always good to pay it forward a little bit, right? So when this card comes up as well, I always say, now, it's great that your enemies are being vanquished.
But let's pay it forward and be
Yeah,
a little,
let's get rid of some of your karma debt as well. So look for those charitable opportunities.
To go back to your sword, when you were talking about the sword and the sword being upright, I noticed, actually, I have a lot of decks in front of me just because I like to see what the differences in the art are. So we've got the chakra one, which I always like to demonstrate or see because you've got your sacral and your heart chakra that are being worked on, but the sword is pointing up. But if you look at, I think this is the Witch's Garden Tarot, the sword is pointing down.
Oh, interesting.
And then, so this might hurt, the sword is pointing up, but the, which one is this?
Is that dark one?
No, that's the Universal Celtic, I think.
Oh.
Sword's pointing down.
Oh, cool.
And then,
But swords. all the way.
still swords. So I have a dragon deck done by Three Trees Tarot, I believe. The art is fantastic. The artist, the collaboration of the artist and the person who did the deck is amazing. So, but the dragon has the sword pointing down, but in the Darkwoods Tarot, it has the sword pointing up.
Huh.
So I just, when you were talking about that, I was like, I have like a really interesting balance of both.
Right. Yeah, that's very cool. I like in the dragon one here that the sword is actually put into the ground.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so it's sort of like,
Yeah.
put in stone, in fact, much like,
The Sword in the Stone.
yeah, King Arthur and the
Yeah.
Holy Grail. Because, of course, the sword in ritual represents male power, right? And when you do the great rite, so to speak, you're putting the sword into the cup because the sword, is the male,
Equivalent.
of
Yeah.
what the woman is. I don't have to do the birds and the bees, I hope, but hopefully you know what I mean there. And the sword,
Cup,
like,
sword.
exactly.
They meet.
They meet together. There's a little bit of this happening.
This is turning into an educational lesson I didn't think we were going to have today.
Good thing YouTube does ask you, is it for children?
No. Plus, we swear too much.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But a lot of people do ask me, what's the difference between the sword or the athame, as it's called,
Okay, yep.
and the wand. Like, because
Well, I mean, they have similar characteristics,
They
but
do.
I feel like there's
you can cast a circle with either or.
yeah, but there's different energies.
There is. So the wand is feminine, the athame is male.
Okay.
And the wand is for drawing magic in. So if you put your wand up, you're calling magic out of the atmosphere.
The atmosphere.
Whereas with
Ooh.
your athame or
you're
sword,
sending it
you're
out.
sending it out.
So you could technically, correct me if I'm wrong, cast the opening of a circle. Like, obviously, you never close the circle.
Yeah.
But you're sending forth the energy back out with the athame.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
making sure.
cast and seal the circle,
Yep.
right? And then you open the circle.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, you never close the circle.
No.
A lot of books will say close, but you don't. You're actually opening the circle and releasing the magic and allowing it to dissipate into the universe and the intentions that we've set and all that.
Yeah.
And
No,
all
I
that
like
good
it.
stuff. Yeah. And swords are generally used in high magic rituals. Athames are more for low magic, and low magic doesn't mean like it's not as good magic. It's more sympathetic kind of magic, right?
Well, I feel like high, and again, I have not taken part in many high rituals, or
They're usually male based
then not at all. I was like, I'm trying to think. I'm like,
because they're about summoning and power and
yeah, that confused me.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I took loosely because it was a bunch of people just talking about Wicca, and it was the way it was presented was interesting. So I'm hoping to just do a little bit more reading on my own, and I think the version of things that I got told a while back is good enough, and I'm not looking to rewrite the book that's already, been stated.
No, I hear that. But yeah, like, and low magic is more, a lot of witches, traditionally speaking, if you're talking about that, or wise women or medicine women, practice what's basically low and sympathetic magic. So it's the everyday, like, I want to heal you. I want this poultice to help with this, or
Like the intentions in your coffee, and it's like quick and easy.
Yeah.
Like effort wise, where I
Yeah.
feel like high ritual is like very high effort.
well, it is, but it's definitely not like, we're not, when you do high magic, you're not sending out intentions necessarily for, I want, a better life or anything like that. It's more, the ones that I've participated in, this is just from my small experience with it, have been about summoning spirits
Okay.
and gaining control over those spirits and getting them to do your bidding.
Oh, okay. So it's that side of it.
Yeah. Because funny, during the burning times, high magic, those magicians that practiced high magic were not
Yeah.
sort of genocided in the same way that women were. And like, I know a lot of people say, oh, witches were burnt back in the burning times. Now, the burning times was like a 400-year time period.
It's a long time in that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it started to kind of wane down, but, and it was not Wiccan at all. It was witchcraft they were after, right?
Interesting.
And it was women they were,
Well, yeah, and it was, and it's
because
interesting
none of these women said they were witches unless they were under torture, and then said
they wanted the
yes.
torture to stop, and then
So they just at that point they'd confess to anything.
yeah,
Right?
just to let me
You're
be.
right. The sky is purple. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Just stopped peeling my fingernails off my
Yeah,
fingers.
and then what I found interesting is like a lot of, so we're going on a tangent about witch trials apparently. What I found interesting about what I've read about the witch trials is like the way to prove your innocence would also result in death.
Yes. Yeah. Like if they would do the dunking, right, in the water.
Yeah.
And if you floated, it meant you were a witch, so they would burn you. And if you sunk and drowned, then you were innocent. Yay!
So it's like, yeah, you're innocent, but you're also dead.
Now the burnings too were awful.
Oh, I can, yeah.
You know, and it wasn't always witches, it was sometimes heretics, quote unquote, because there was a lot of stuff going on with the church and the Bible, and the Bible being translated to English, which was, you know, back and forth about whether it was right or wrong and blah blah blah.
They're still having that argument nowadays. Just give you some perspective. We don't burn people for it anymore.
Yeah,
but
thank God. I mean, if your executioner was kind, he would either slit your throat, or your family could buy you a bag of gunpowder and put it around your neck.
so that once it gets too hot, you're just,
You just explode.
Yep.
Because it's better than dying with just burning to death.
yep.
And some of the things they would do is just like so inhumane. You know, like skinning someone alive and
Yet they
drawing
thought
and
they were
quartering.
justified.
Yeah, exactly. And the rack was unbelievable. Like your arms and legs would be dislocated, your feet would be dangling.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it would just be awful. It's like, what, like, what are you hoping to get out of that, right? Like, I know we, you know, have said waterboarding's awful, and you know, do you know what we used to do? We were horrible people.
Waterboarding's nothing compared to what used to happen.
Yeah, I mean, not saying it's right. It's
No,
not
no,
right,
no.
but it's like,
We're not
why are we
condoning any of
so cruel to each other?
I think
and
we're-
who's the sick fuck that thought these things up?
Right? Oh my gosh. I'm sure if you Googled that, you could probably figure that out.
Yeah.
But like I find that interesting on a humane, like a psychological, there we go, that's what I wanted. My
Yeah,
brain went through a
yeah.
little couple of terms. Like there is something about humanity and them like wanting to see either things or other people suffer. Like for example, and I'm totally taking this out of like yonder year context and into present day. I had finished my drink, but if I don't have to, so I respite for families on weekends, and if I don't have to use their cutlery or like dishes, I won't. So like I had a drink from Starbucks. It was in a plastic cup because I was on the go. I didn't have my water bottle on me, and I had finished the drink, but I'd filled it up with water. But I was outside, and it still had remnants of like all the sugariness, and a bee had decided to like, oh, I want to see what this is about.
Right.
And I'm literally watching, and I'm like, it's screwed. And I'm like, I can't watch it. It would literally try to get out, and it would stop. And then it would like almost sink back in. And I'm like, I can't watch this. So I literally like poured it all out onto the ground. I'm like, hopefully your wings can dry and you can survive.
Get a little sunshine on
Yeah.
you.
And it's like I couldn't even, so like I don't think I could ever torture, not that I would ever do that, but like
Yeah.
what goes through your head that you think that's okay?
Yeah.
That's kind of where my brain was going with that story.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like who's the, yeah, I mean, back in the day when they did these horrible things, who's the person that's tightening the rack and being okay with watching someone?
Well, and that's like
Someone's arms
how
pop
much
out or-
PTSD are you gonna have from like touching the fire stick to the wood and hearing these women scream?
Yeah, not only that, but like, you know, most people could not stay for very long because the smell of burning human flesh apparently is just horrific.
I am so glad I don't know that smell and hope to never find out.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever burnt your hair, which I
Women who use curling tools, let me know in the comments what you're.
or back in the day when I used to smoke and you didn't have the lighter, you'd try and light it off the stove top. Sometimes your hair would fall and be like, whoa.
Oh.
And even human hair does not smell good. It's like, but this is where we get our stereotypical image of the witch from, is from the burning times.
Yep.
Because most of the women went through torture, so their nose would be broken, so that's where the big crooked nose comes from. They'd be bruised, so they'd be blue and green, that's where the green face comes from.
Oh, okay, yeah,
You
you're
know,
right. You're right.
and their hands would be broken from
And
either
then, so like your grotesqueness of your hands and
yeah,
stuff.
and you're
Interesting.
stooped after torture as you're
Yep.
being taken to the stake or whatever. And so yeah, that's where our ugly, crooked kind of looking witch comes from. And of course the warts, because that was one of the telltale signs in the book The Witch's Hammer, was if they had like scars or well, not scars, but warts or moles or whatever, you know, oh, they're a witch, you know, and of course they would have to strip them down.
And
which was
double check.
yeah, which was, you know, another
Inhumane.
thing in and of itself. But
Yeah, like I find it really, I don't know, like history is fascinating. I really hope we learn from history.
yes, and not erase it,
No.
right? Like
No.
if it's a bad thing that's happened, let's, you know, keep it out in public view so people know about it, because then we're doomed to repeat it.
Yep.
Because there's always going to be a bad guy in a crowd. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter which side you're on, the yes side, the no side, the conservative, the liberal.
Well, I found
there's
it-
always going to be bad guys on each side.
So I find it interesting, and if I ever become a teacher in a high school classroom, which I don't ever foreseeing, but I want to give this to my husband and make him do this to his students, and it's a game, quote unquote, but basically it shows you, because if they're talking about the witch trials and things like that, they're all given their individual, whether you're a pilgrim, like a villager, or a witch,
Oh, okay.
individually, so no one knows who's who.
Oh, okay.
And then it's a psychological experiment essentially, because then they section off and cordon off and be like, no, we're not allowed to have witches in here. And in the end, because obviously like it just shows division and shows how like cruel people can be in a high school context.
yeah.
And in the end,
And how fast it can happen.
and how fast it can happen. And then in the end, it's revealed that no one's actually the witch, and it's the
Oh, okay.
perception of other people.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting, and I really want to see it happen, because I do the lower grades. They're not
Right,
they're not at that
right.
intellectual level yet, but I really think it would be interesting to
It's
put
interesting that you say that, because I watched many years ago on the Oprah show. They did kind of something
similar.
similar.
Okay.
But what they said before Oprah came out with her guests and everything, they told the audience that people with like brown eyes were naturally smarter than people with blue or green eyes.
Oh, okay. So again, it's about perception.
Yeah. So then she brought out this guest who was supposed to be like this expert on, you know, brown-eyed people who are smarter or something stupid like that. I can't remember exactly what the subject was, but people, like, it was back in the day when she'd go in the audience and get comments and stuff, and people were standing up and going, yeah, you know, I am smarter because I find I'm smarter because I've got, and it's
Yes.
how fast they latched on to that idea.
Well, and I find it really interesting, and that's where, like, to bring it back to magic and stuff, like, when you're told something by either somebody who's been in the craft longer, or it's an information and you're kind of just delving into it for the first time, so whether you're reading it on the internet, a book, I know when you were growing up, the subject matter was not as readily available as it is now.
No.
And there is so much subject matter out there. Like, even social media has, like, hashtags you can follow if you're into, like, certain types of magic.
And you have to be careful, the internet information.
Oh, God, yes. And it's like, always have a critical eye. And not everyone does.
And don't be afraid to challenge.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not in a jerk kind of
Or
way.
disrespectful way, but just in like a, hey, this doesn't jive with me. Can you explain yourself? Or
Yeah.
where did your source come from? Because I went to higher education, I'm constantly like, I read something, I'm like, where'd you source that? Even in like news articles, I'm like, where'd they get that from?
Right.
And if they can't prove it, I'm like,
Yeah.
is
yeah.
that really how it's going?
Right.
Regardless of like what subject matter it is. And I feel like that's very important, and in the age of social media, doesn't get shared enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, because when I first started on my journey, information was very hard to get.
Mm-hmm.
And even, you know, participating in something was very hard to do because you had to know the right people
Well,
that
that's
would,
it. And like,
you know,
even-
get you in.
We were talking about Reiki and stuff, and like, I technically can teach Reiki. You can definitely teach Reiki, just by like the levels we're at and stuff and things. And like, you were telling me when you went through it, like, you had to like know the right people and find the person that was willing to teach you, if they were willing to teach you. Where me, I could Google search it,
Yeah.
and have like 15
And everybody
people.
and their uncles now teaching,
Yeah.
at least first level kind
Yeah.
of Reiki. And it has changed a lot
Oh, it totally has.
since I've first took it, right?
Yeah.
Because it was very like, it was a lot more rigid. Like, because I think when we were doing that last class, I was telling you, like, I'm 5 degrees away from Dr. whatever his name was. I can never pronounce it. So it makes you 6 degrees away from him. So, like, our lineage is very pure
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, because now there's, you know, Reiki this and Reiki that. And
Well, and I find it fascinating. So, like, what was it? There's Dragon Reiki, and that, like, fascinates me to no end. But I'm like,
there's
is it-
crystal Reiki.
There's crystal Reiki. There's
fairy Reiki. There's fakey Reiki
Fakey.
too.
I love that. Oh, we should offer that. That'd be amazing. But like, and it's essentially the same teaching, just wrapped differently.
Yeah, yeah,
Which-
absolutely.
Is amazing that it's so accessible, but then you're like, how good is the information? Or in like, I had audited a Reiki class recently, and she put in some scientific studies.
Oh, okay.
That I'm like, yes, please.
Right.
I love scientific studies just from like my background in
Yeah.
college and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, because that's where my brain grew up in, like, if I can't articulate and see it in front of me, it doesn't make sense. So it took a long time to like really hone in that intuitive side.
Yeah, because I know over in the UK, they actually have like
Institutes.
clinics
Yeah.
where that you walk in and get, and your medical insurance covers Reiki.
What's
and,
going on, Canada?
Yeah,
Come on.
right? Why are we so behind?
Yeah. Like, I would love to be able to bill people's insurance for our rates.
100%. Yeah.
Because I think
yeah.
we would have full, like, I would have full books. Sorry, you already have full books in general. But I definitely don't.
Right.
So
right.
I feel like my books would be more full if people could, you know, bill their insurance for Reiki. Because
Yeah.
it definitely helps.
Yeah, definitely. Because, like, not everybody, like, sometimes I do hands-on, sometimes I don't.
Yep.
Because Reiki has that option. And sometimes people don't want to be touched, right? Because maybe they've only been touched in violent kind of ways.
Yeah.
So they're very much like, don't.
Or, yes.
Yeah.
I took Reiki during COVID. Like, I got certified in Reiki 1
Right.
before COVID. And then as I've journeyed through that, it was during COVID, and people were like, don't touch me. I'm like, sounds good to me.
Right, right.
And it still facilitates the same.
yeah.
I know from previous clients, they're like, no, hands off is great.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas I know I have a very healing touch.
You do.
It's just a gift for whatever reason. So I prefer to put hand on because I know you will be healed wherever I touch you. And I know I sound like an insane person.
One of those like tent faith healers.
Exactly.
Be healed.
Be healed. Exactly. Right. Have you accepted the Lord Jesus Christ into your life?
Oh.
But I've actually had clients that have said, you know, you
Yep.
gave me a hug or you held my hand, and I just feel so much different now because of that.
Well, there's ways to do it even like in my day job. Like for kids, and I haven't been able to do this year as much because I don't know the kids as well. But if the kid, so I work with a lot of nonverbal kids, and we were talking about consent the other day, and because one of my kids pegged me. I think we share the same diagnosis, and he was a lot less verbal than I am, but he pegged me. Like his eyes followed me like the entire day.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, you and I need to have a chat? Like, what's going on, buddy? And, like, he got super smiley about it. And I eventually did tell him, because I don't normally share the whole thing. Like, you know, I know we have something in common. And he's like, he nodded at me. And I was like, okay, I know you know.
That's sweet.
Didn't even have to talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing how observant they can be.
Oh, totally. You gotta watch what you do. Oof. They'll be like, but Miss Kayla did it. No. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
But you gotta walk the walk too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was my mother's thing when she would, you know, she didn't want any of us smoking. Don't smoke as she lit up, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I've made the mistake, but you don't have to.
I have a healthy fear of doctors. I have too many doctors that would kill me if I started smoking.
Oh, it's funny. All of us started smoking. I was always the social smoker, though.
Yeah.
I could always put it up put it down, and I never got the craving for cigarettes. So I could
Which
go,
is interesting because some people say like that's what did them in.
yeah, yeah. So I could go 3 months, 6 months, a year without a cigarette.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm having a beer. Let's have a smoke, right? I could always do it. Now, as I've gotten older, I find I don't really like them. But, you know, it's like, meh, doesn't do it for me anymore.
I think I spent some time around some smokers when I was young, and I was like, no, thank you.
Oh,
At all.
all my brothers and sisters became smokers, and they all got addicted to it. And I think there's only one or two that,
Have managed to.
no, one or two that are still smoking.
Oh, okay, so the rest of them have managed to.
Yeah, to
well, that's
quit.
exciting.
Yeah, but
'Cause it's
they're
hard.
all like, you know, if I even took one puff, I'd be back on it right away. Whereas I'm like, yeah, I could take it or leave it. I don't
Yeah, I
care.
was.
My doctor was like, that is so weird, but you are like that, aren't you? I'm like, yep.
I mean, I want to say I did that. Mom, if you're watching, I'm sorry. When I would socially go out with people, like if they're
Well, I mean-
smoking, I would partake.
I think there's a lot of people that have at least tried
Yeah,
smoking.
and I think that's where like it stayed with me. I was like, okay, I'll try this a few times, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I also think it was because I was around certain people growing up that happened to smoke, and I didn't like other aspects of those people on top of them smoking. And then I was just
Okay.
like, no, we're good.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I just, like I said, I never woke up and thought, oh, I have to have a cigarette. Because
Yeah.
I lived with a girlfriend for a while, and we had to share a bed, not because we were together, but not that that matters, but that's the way the
Oh yeah, I know.
situation was set up.
It was.
So-
It's you
but
gotta.
she-
When you need a roof over your head, you're sharing a bed.
Exactly.
That's-
It was a water bed. It was horrible.
My God, the water bed in the 90s,
Yeah.
80s,
Yes.
80s. Yeah.
Yep, in the 80s.
Oh, I
yep,
had
yep.
one
So it was like
growing up.
slosh,
Yeah.
slosh anytime you, like you would get in and you'd be like, I don't want to move because I'll be sloshing her. And but she would wake up in the morning and she would roll out of bed with her blanket and light up right away.
Oh my God.
That would be the first thing she would do. And I'd be like, how can
How
you do
can
that?
you do that? But I mean, people. So like, you know, how people are like, I need my coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
I need music. I'm
Oh,
like
okay.
I'm not awake until you get a few bars of like whatever is in my brain.
Right.
So it might be a bit habitual thing, because like one of my exes, while he was driving, he had to have a smoke in his hand.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
So
that
when he
was-
started quitting, he was like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like I'm like, both hands on the wheel. What a concept.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. 10 and 2. Or now it's
Oh.
3 and 9, actually.
oh, is it? They're
they
not 10 and
changed
2
it.
anymore.
Yeah, not 10 and 2 anymore.
I my first car, I would always, because it was comfortable, I had enough of the wheel that I could do this and just keep it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, that's a bad habit.
yeah, I do that too because sometimes my hand aches, so I just rest it
Yep.
in the little hole there,
Yep.
and then I'm driving. But if I need to use two, I can.
Yeah.
But I'm a good driver, people.
No, mine's a
I actually am a very good driver.
yes. No, she is a very good driver. I can attest to that.
So can a lot of my friends that I used to race cars once in a while.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yes. yes.
I love so going back to the justice, yes.
yeah.
You've got judgment on my brain.
I know. I thought we were doing judgment. I was all excited about judging everybody, but it's
Judgment.
justice.
No, shame. Game of Thrones reference. I like this sentence. Having a big heart and being naturally empathetic means that you have experienced unequal relationships of sorts, whether these are financial, work relationships, romantic, partnerships, whatever, and experienced inequality, like that justice and that karma, like they want you to set boundaries.
Oh,
That
okay.
card wants you to like have that healthy mindset in setting boundaries. So the vibrant key phrases are creating healthy boundaries, actively defending healthy boundaries, letting go of limiting beliefs.
Nice. yeah.
That'll probably releasing misaligned identities and addressing symptoms and robust decisions, letting go of codependent relationships.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or, working to not be codependent in your relationship. Like,
Ooh, that's
you
a good
can
one.
change your relationship too. It's not always you have to leave a relationship.
No, but it's just easier if one person's not willing to change.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like,
Sorry, I come from if it's not working, I cut it off at the knees.
yeah. But, I mean, sometimes you have to strengthen yourself
Yep.
and know that that person is only going to do what they're going to do, and you have to love them. Like, especially if it's a parent type situation or a sibling perhaps type situation, you can't make them change. But you can love them as they are and hope for the best, right? And sometimes your love and the strength of you becoming that stronger person has a spillover effect.
Yeah.
And because we all influence each other, right? We're all mimickers.
We definitely do. Well, you're right, because like so my stepmother is from Newfoundland, and I spent 2 days with her, and everyone's like, "That's your kid." She's like, "Nope, I'm not responsible for that one." And she says it in such a joking way. We love her for it. But I end up picking up her accent.
Oh, okay.
So like when you said mimickers, like that's what happens is when we're around people that we like, we emulate them.
Yes.
And or out of survival techniques I've heard of and or in friendship groups I've done this where it's like this person is really well liked and I'm not as liked, so I'm gonna more emulate their perspectives.
Yeah.
Or mannerisms, things like that. And as long as you don't lose yourself in the process, it's not a bad thing, but be careful.
Yeah, I mean, we start mimicking right from the day we're born, right? And and that's what we do. But like you say, you don't want to lose yourself in the process. And that's why, you find yourself, using the same phrases that your parents used when you say,
yes.
never talk like my mother did. And then that phrase comes out and you're like, oh my God.
Coworkers, I got in trouble one time in a drive-thru. So like I'm maybe 21.
Okay.
So I'm working Tim Hortons drive-thru, and one of my other coworkers uses hun, and you work 2 shifts with her, you pick it up.
I hate that term.
I know, and this one lady, and I just happened to, like, it worked its way into my vocabulary because I had worked with her all week, and the one lady, like, tore a strip off me.
Oh.
Because I called her hun.
Yeah.
And I was like, rightfully so. I understand.
I like the British terms better, right? Like, I was watching a British detective show last night.
British detective shows are, like, on another level.
Exactly, right? And
Was it Father Brown?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, I love Father Brown. Sorry,
yeah, I
that's
can't
another
remember what
delight.
his name was. It was a new one. But anyways, he called everybody love.
Oh, that's a cute one.
And I liked that one. Or darling.
Darling.
I
yeah.
want my husband to call me darling. It's like,
Darling.
darling. My mother used to swear like the British did. Like, oh, this bloody glass or whatever, right?
It's bloody brilliant.
She picked up on it from her last foster parents,
Oh,
who
okay,
stuck
yes.
around and became my Nana and Bubba.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I have one of my families is originally from England, but they've been in Canada for 15 years now.
Okay.
So like every so often it'll come out and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot you guys are British.
Yeah. Right. And some of the colloquial isms.
Yep.
That was hard to say.
Colloquialisms.
So in the fairy tale tarot.
Ooh. Oh, it's the Midas one.
The Midas touch. So throughout the evolution of tarot, this card has usually been portrayed as a female figure because Justice is blind and Justice is usually a female with the blindfold on, right? Sometimes blindfolded, representing cosmic justice, of course, sitting upon a throne, holding a sword of spiritual power in her right hand. Now, it's funny that, spiritual power in her right hand, because that's where, that's how you send things and whatnot. But also in there's a slang of the red right hand, which is the hand of God. So just putting that out there. So in her right hand, and the scales of divine justice in her left hand. The goddess of wisdom was known as Themis in ancient Greece and Mat in ancient Egypt. As one moved toward the afterlife, there was a need to balance one's accounts, right? Because it's funny how old people start to go to church more, or hold on to their rosary or prayer beads.
I gotta atone for how I've lived.
Exactly, because you're like, I got more behind me than I do in front of me.
Which is interesting. No, keep going.
Okay.
Because I want you to keep going, because I'll end up tangenting us again.
Okay. So balance one's accounts and be weighed in the celestial scales as a human soul. Mm-hmm. The children's story of the Midas touch is a profound teaching on this subject. In the tale, King Midas. If you don't know, he's the one with the golden touch. So everything he touched, and he got this wish somehow, but everything he touched turned to gold, but including like his loved ones and stuff, right?
Which is a very lonely existence.
Exactly. So in the tale of King Midas, he has a beautiful daughter whom he loves very much, but the closer to his heart is his desire for gold. So he desires that more. One day, while he is counting his wealth, a stranger appears and asks him what he would like more than anything in the world. The king, without forethought, abruptly asks that everything he touched become gold. The mysterious stranger tells him that by sunrise the next day his wish will be granted. As the first rays of light enter the king's chambers in the morning, the king is astounded to see that his wish has indeed been granted. A chair, his bed, and even the glorious roses on in his garden turn to gold as at his very touch. However, his daughter, who loved the roses, runs to her father terribly upset at this sudden turn of events. The king reaches out to comfort her, and shockingly, she turns to gold as well. Beside himself with grief, the king once again encounters the stranger, who asks the mighty ruler if he has learned his lesson. King Midas begs that the golden touch be taken away. The stranger tells him to dive into a pool of water in the garden with a special vase and fill it with water from the depths of the pool. This represents a ritualistic cleansing of his sins of avarice and pride, so much like our baptisms and stuff, right? Midas is told that if he pours the water on everything that has been turned to gold, all his precious objects will again be restored to their natural state. Sure enough, the stranger's words hold true, and King Midas is able to bring his daughter and the beautiful roses of the garden back to life. The clear moral of this fairy tale is that there is something much more precious and close to our hearts than material wealth or gold. The beauty and sacredness of life all around us. Another lesson is to think ahead concerning the implications of your act, for your innermost wishes may very well come true, causing more grief than happiness. When this card appears in your reading, the time has come for you to recognize the values that govern your life and understand how those principles reflect the choices you make each day. And that I say a lot of times of, you know, it's okay to challenge what you believe are your truths. And you should do that every once in a while, because maybe you have a truth that you've held on to that maybe helped you cope through a difficult session in your life or series in your life, and maybe that's not serving you anymore. And maybe it's becoming a block or a reason why you're not moving forward or whatever, right? Like justified anger, for instance. Like when I was talking earlier about at 16 years old how I was raped, I was justifiably angry. But I learned in the long run, I need to forgive. I need to forgive the person that wronged me, because really forgiveness is a very selfish act if you think about it, because what you're doing is you're restoring your own peace of mind and your own well-being and your balance. And I really hope that the person that hurt me finds his way. And I even said to a client last week, because we were talking about, you know, this kind of thing, and I said, if I see that person on the other side, I will tell the powers that be, I've forgiven him. You know, help him find his way if he hasn't already, kind of thing. Because really that brought me the greatest peace, and I have grown and moved forward because of it.
Well, and I think it's interesting that, like, we should be letting go of things that anger us, because why would you want to live your life angry? And also, you're not actually happy.
You're not at all.
And like, you only I would almost equate, sorry, I'm making a Harry Potter reference, you only live half a life. So in Harry Potter, when you choose to drink unicorn's blood, it only gives you a half-life. If you're like an inch away from death, it'll bring you back, but it doesn't bring you back fully.
Right.
So that kind of is what made me think of, like, yes, you're helping yourself, but you're not, there's something missing still, right? Like, you're not fully gaining everything back that you had.
But you don't know until you do it.
Yeah.
Because when people would say, you know, I've been to many therapy sessions and counselors and shamans and healers and stuff. And when they'd say you need to let go of it, I'd be like, "Fuck you! I need to let go of it. I'm angry."
Well, and like,
But when I did let go of it, I was like, "Oh, they were right."
well, and I think, yeah, so I also have, in a different situation, have held on a lot of anger, and then I wasn't in therapy at the time, but then through previous therapy sessions and then the situation that happened, I realized the anger wasn't worth it, and nothing was changing as I was holding on to this anger. So if I let it go, maybe things would at least be happier on my side of things, because it takes two to tango, right? So like the issue I had with the other person, they were living their life and fine. So why was I hanging on to the anger?
Right. Yeah.
So like, but I had a lot of like self-actualization when I went to college and like figured out a bunch of stuff. And then sometimes it takes a while.
It does take a while
to figure things out. So like someone can tell you, Josh, my best friend. So my husband and my best friend realized this, that like I'm like a cat. You could tell me something, and it'll be the right thing to do. But until I figure it out for myself, I'm not gonna listen to you.
Yeah.
So
and I think a lot of people are like that.
yeah,
Like,
more than they're willing to admit.
yeah, I've had some very angry people sit in the chair at my tarot table who, you know, they're absolutely right to be angry. But at the same time, like you said, you don't want to live there. You're not only living half a life. And again, you know, I understand why you want to be angry. And people get angry on behalf of you sometimes, too. And then they feel okay, because anger feels powerful.
I feel like it's an illusion of power, though.
Oh, it is. Absolutely, it's an illusion of power. It's not powerful.
'Cause
It's
it helps
very
you-
weak. It's made of glass. It will shatter in a second.
It helps you in that moment, but it doesn't really help you
Long
Sorry,
term.
I'm having this conversation, which is fantastic. But I'm also realizing one of the cards that I was gonna show as being justice isn't justice, because one of the decks I have, the Wildwood Tarot, flips it with strength.
Oh, okay.
So I was like,
Interesting.
So-
Interesting.
the 11 in the Wildwood Tarot is strength,
Okay. Okay.
and the 8th card, which most decks is
Strength. Yep.
is the stag.
But some old school tarot decks also have that where it's switched around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on, and this one was done after, I want to call it the Greenman Tarot.
Oh, okay.
It was, so this deck was based on that deck, and that deck is like $400 if you can get a copy. Like it's really sought after.
Wow.
So-
Wow.
Sorry, my brain just had a moment of like, what numbers?
But I mean, a lot of this anger stuff is like it's relevant with the justice card
Yep.
because we feel justified in punishing people and putting people to death. And you know, back in the day where we were talking about torture, we feel they felt justified.
and they were right. Like and
In
there was
torturing.
nobody to tell. Like you couldn't tell them any different.
No, and you know, and even on social media when you see, you know, the pile-on effect, as they say, where we should take them out in the streets and stone them and blah, 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 you know, and it's like, wow, we get really violent really quickly.
What is one of my high school plays was based on this concept.
Oh, okay.
Was like something happened, the narrator was this like puppet master thing, and there was these two warring families, and like each side thought they were correct. So it was like half Romeo and Juliet, half this concept of like
Right or wrong.
right or wrong, majority will think they're correct even when they're not, and they in the end they learned that lesson, and they all kind of came together as a big happy family.
ending.
Yeah, it was a happy ending, but it did play with that concept of like, I think I'm right, no, I think I'm right, and then like the consequences that come from that, because both sides had losses.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, I always, not always, that's a very sweeping statement.
It's like, are we making sweeping statements tonight? Some days I think we make them in by accident, and then afterwards I'm like, ooh.
Like, I understand the need for keeping criminal types, you know, contained in some way, like jail or whatever. I get that. But at the same time, it's like there should be some mercy as well. I think that's part of the scales, is that
Well, I mean, it is.
for society, the anger that happens when someone crosses the line and breaks a law, like, and they murder someone or they rape someone or they steal from someone or whatever. But then there's also that mercy, right? And I mean, you know me, my guilty pleasure is watching court shows, right? I watch everything from Judge Judy to People's Court. I would love to do lunch with Marilyn Milan. She's amazing.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
That would be very cool. And I said to my husband the other night, I think her and her husband would really get along with me and my husband. I think that'd be an awesome double date. But I also watch the real court shows.
Yeah.
And some of these people are fucked up.
Well, and I've always, whenever I see the court shows, because I see them more on social media, because I don't actually have like cable, but I'll see like, I think
there's
it's,
ways without cable to get
oh,
those.
for sure. But like, I just don't have the time. I'm not a TV person. If I'm gonna spend time actually doing something, I'm gonna have something on in the background, and I'm gonna be focusing on something.
Probably Harry Potter.
Yes,
Let's be real.
That's my go-to for background noise. But it's the child support court that keeps popping up.
Oh,
So it's like,
okay.
I want to take them to child support, and it's like, do you realize I have this much of the time with the kids, this much goes to the insurance, and then so they flip, and it's like, you wanted more child support, when in actuality, you're gonna have to pay. Oh, those are my favorite, where it's like, ooh, you wanted more, but then you just got just desserts.
Right. Yeah. See, I don't really go for the family court stuff. I'm more for the
like,
violent
The
crime.
violent. How stupid were you on a Saturday night?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's the full face tattoo type people, and
I always wonder. 'Cause
I'm like, you've made some choices in life.
Well, it's interesting too, because I follow a guy that ends up, so like 2020, we all had to stay home.
Yeah.
It was like the boom of content creation because people had nothing else to do. And some
Right.
people have literally made jobs about this. And then so he made a video, because I think that's his job. He does content creation and used to work in like a grocery store. So a lot of his videos are very grocery store or retail centered.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, what if TikTok was banned? And like, how would the content creators get a job? And then, so it's him walking into work, and it's like them going, what do you mean I have to work for more than 2 hours? Or they're doing like this TikTok dance, and he's like, what do you mean this doesn't work to get views? And like, you gotta follow me for part 2 if they want to show them like where something is. And I just died. I died. It was great.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. So yeah, like when the justice card comes up, sometimes people get a little, oh God, because it's like, yes, you know, you're going to be maybe corrected as well. Because we all
I'd say
need...
it's fair. It's because a lot of the, sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
The balance, right? You've got
Yeah.
those scales, the balance, the fairness and equality. So like, you may think it's about someone else when really you may not want to take a look at yourself too.
Yeah, because all the cards leading up to this, like Strength and the Chariot and the Wheel of Fortune, you know, like you realize life can spin either way and with the wheel. And the Strength card is about, you know, achieving that inner strength and discipline through some of these struggles. And then, of course, the Chariot is about, like, you'll win if you have the balance, right? And then Justice is that balance again. So the last 4 cards are really sort of helping you to explore, if you're using them especially as self-reflection, explore, like, what are your truths? What angers are you holding on to that you feel justified in hanging on to those angers? Because
Do you realize how much anger you're holding on to?
and do you realize how much anger you're holding on to? And do you realize how much that's painting decisions you're making, right? You know, because a lot of times, you know, like with me, it was like, do I walk down that dark alley to get home because it's the shortcut? No, I'm going to go the long way round or whatever, right?
Well, and you learn things in life too, right? So like how you view things at 20 and 25 and your experience there versus 45 and 50 is a very different experience. Even if you learned some things, and maybe the karma cards kind of, you know, set you straight a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also an indicator that now is the best time to review yourself and your beliefs and your truths. Because our truths are just our opinions of ourselves.
Yes.
They're not set in stone. You can always change them, you know?
Well, and I think it's also, like you said before, it's good to question.
Yeah.
truths and really kind of realize where that truth is coming from. Do you believe it because your family believes it, or do you believe it because it's a truth to you?
Yeah, like some people believe they're a natural worrier.
Mm-hmm.
Are you? Because I think you're more of a habitual worrier as opposed to a natural worrier. And, you know, if the justice card comes up, maybe it's time to address that. And are you worrying yourself into, you know, stagnation?
Oh yeah, because if you get you spiral. So that was me during COVID.
Right.
I spiraled too much and I didn't get much done.
Yeah, and it's learning how to ground yourself and learning how to bring yourself to center and all these things. And I think we've talked a lot.
We have. We did a couple tangents, but we did get a good message on the justice card, or the
Yeah.
karma card, as we like to call it.
Yes.
But no, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I hope you have a great week. We won't be doing one next Monday because it's Thanksgiving here in Canada. So we'll be busy eating turkey and mashed potatoes with lots of gravy.
Turkey coma is the best.
That's right.
Can't forget
And
the
I'm,
cranberries.
yeah, no, the cranberries, all the fixings
All
and
the
the trimmings and all that good stuff. And I'm hosting it this
Ooh, that's
year for my
exciting.
family. So yeah, I will be out of commission because I'll be busy.
Busy bee. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Start prepping on Thursday?
Yeah, basically, I'm booked off Friday because
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, it's turkey time.
Ooh, I might be able to come in because Friday's a PA day. So depending
Oh.
on what I'm doing,
Wow,
Okay, I will be here.
nice. All right, well, I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving if you're Canadian, and I'm sure we'll be wishing you a Thanksgiving in November for our American.
Counterparts.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. All right, see you later. Bye. And now my fingers are. There we go.